Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Inspiring Minds. Private equity, investment banking, management consulting. These are the most common answers when asked about our dream jobs. Today we have with us a young achiever who has done it all. Let me welcome my very good friend Divyansh Jain. Divyansh has graduated from Shriram College of Commerce and has completed all three levels of CFA. He has also secured All India Rank 10 in his CA finals. He has worked with Deutsche Bank in their corporate and investment banking division. He also worked with the Boston Consulting Groups, one of the top tier management consulting firms. Currently, he is working as an analyst with the Blackstone Group, the world's largest private equity firm. Thank you so much, Divyansh, for accepting my invitation and heartiest congratulations to you for all your achievements.
Thanks a lot, Jay. But you made I'm very over hearing this introduction that you have prepared, and it's not that big a deal. I'm sure you have interviewed better people before and met brighter champs, and you yourself are an inspiration for everyone who is watching this video.
Thank you so much, Divyansh, and you are really modest in saying that. Divyansh, what we'll be doing is we'll break down this episode into three parts, where we'll be discussing about your experiences and suggestions on how to ace these interviews to get into these dream profiles. Right. In the first part, we'll cover the investment banking role. Then in the second part, we'll go on to management consulting, and in the third part, we'll go to private equity. Right.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So before diving into the various nitty-gritties of investment banking, there is one thing that I wanted to discuss with you. I'm a firm believer of challenging the normal and doing things differently. Most people are very apprehensive about taking risks, right? So, and having known you personally for quite some time now, there is one decision you took in your journey, which I highly respect and it's really inspiring. So you had a full-time investment banking job and then you also went to London for it. But then you pivoted back to CA and resigned. And obviously, looking back now, it has worked out well. But at that point of time, it must have been really frightening, right? So, what was your motivation to take that kind of a risk?
Yeah, Jay, to be honest, that was a very important decision making phase for me as well, because Deutsche happened right after SRCC. I had already cleared my IPCC, and I had to start my articleship after college, but then I got this opportunity where I got the chance to do an investment banking role right after college, and that is something that for many itself is a career milestone. So I did not want to let it go as badly as I wanted to do CA, given the fact that I come from a CA background. My father is a CA and he has his own firm, he is his own practicing firm. So he's very close with this institution, so he wanted me to do CA. But then when Deutsche happened, I did not want to let it go. So Deutsche itself was a decision, not doing CA, leaving it in between and then going to Deutsche. And then when I was really loving the role, the work, and my learning curve was very steep at Deutsche, but I was in the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa oil and gas team, and that was the point. I did not want to restrict myself to oil and gas at the age of 21 in my career. And then I realized that I used to identify gaps in terms of education. What if I never did an MBA after, and I continued with Deutsche forever? I would just be an undergrad BCom pass. So then I realized that I have to complete my education. There are a lot of other feathers in my hat that are related to academic fields that I would want to add. So then CFA and CA were the two things that the curriculum really so I decided that okay, I think that is where I need to take a pause and then come back and complete my CA and obviously give more time to CFA. But then obviously it was not a decision, not a very easy decision as it sounds. There are a lot of phone conversations, phone calls, a lot of consulting calls with friends, seniors, colleagues. Even after comeback, there are a lot of time that I did regret, because CA is a very tough phase. I'm sure you have also gone through it, so you know it better than me. That CA is a very tough phase, and a lot of times I would see my friends who were working, getting promotions, getting salary hikes, and I'm getting a very nominal stipend at my articleship phase, and at the same time they're getting multi-lakh salaries. So that is a bit. That's the thing. You will have to. There are many phases in your career you'll get where the people will earn more than you, will get promotions, will get career jumps better. But these are the times that you'll have to stay strong and not compare. That is the phase where I learned that I should never compare myself to someone else and look at someone else's career. And that's the only, once I stopped doing that, it became very easy for me. And then I could just focus on my ads and concentrate on my CA course. And then I never looked at it that okay, I've come from an investment banking background and now I'm doing CA. I had to stop doing that. And fortunately, that's when it started working for me as well.
Yeah, so it's a very deep thought, right? And it's very rightly said that you should stop comparing yourself to others and focus on your journey and your end goal, right? So you pivoted back to CA and left your investment banking because you wanted to come back to CA and complete your CA and then get into various other opportunities that you can enter into via the CA route, right? So I think
Right.
that's what we need to focus on the end goal rather than on the current job as well, right? Also need to think about your future and stop comparing yourself to others, right? Because every individual has its each own unique story, right?
Right.
Right. Great.
You can get
So
inspired, but you can't compare.
absolutely, you can get inspired, but then each individual has their different story. That's true.
Definitely.
So now let's break down into the investment banking profile, right? So Divyansh, what does an investment banker actually do?
So in corporate finance, basically there are two broad buckets I would look at. One is fundraising and one is M&A. And these are the two profile work streams that I've seen mostly people focus on. Fundraising could involve helping firms raise funds through IPOs, FPOs, or bank lending, and in terms of some sort of debt restructuring as well and refinancing. So there could be a situation where you would have clients where you could probably tell them how their fund structure you could optimize and lower their fund costs, and you can probably refinance some existing loans and get loans at a lower cost. You can help companies raise funds through public and become a listed company. So this is the basic fundraising aspect. M&As, I'm sure, is a general term that people understand, mergers and acquisitions, where you can probably reach out to a company and tell them that, okay, you have this asset that can generate more value than it is adding to you currently in your current portfolio. So you can maybe carve it out, sell it off, and generate value. So that is the other thing. A lot of times, let's say today I have a company that I want to sell, but I don't know who are the buyers for this asset right now in the market. So I can probably reach out to an investment banker who would create a sell side pitch book for me, and I would reach out to a lot of investment bankers. They will tell me how they would present this asset to investors. I would select for, let's say, three or four bankers who would probably have a good network in the buyer universe, and then these investment bankers would probably sell my assets to investors and they'll run the deal. So this is where investment bankers come in terms of being called the sell side force of any transaction. So that's these are the basic elements to investment banking workday. Yeah.
Right, right. So what did your average day look like, and what kind of work can be expected to do when you enter into investment banking?
I think in most of the careers, I think work definitely involves around Outlook, Word, Excel, and PPT. I think, and definitely in terms of investment banking and private equity, Bloomberg is also an important element. But typical work day, you would that's a beauty. No day is the same, to be honest. Every day is very different. There's a different challenge every time. Every client brings in his or her own set of different problems and situations and circumstances. So there's a lot of research that goes into it. There's a lot of structuring to how to solve a problem that needs to be done. So when you for investment banking, I would say I would come in. There'd be some client meeting at the end of the week that you'd be preparing for. You'd be preparing some doing some research on their asset and putting together slides. At the same time, you would be doing some valuation work for their assets, and you combine this Excel modeling and this generic industry and company overview and the other strategic partners that the firm could probably associate with, and put it all together and prepare for a meeting, and then go for the meeting and then see how things add on. So this is what an investment banking week look like rather than a day, because that's how you plan. But it does get hectic a lot of times. If there's a meeting, there can be situations where you come to the office and there's this MD walking in and say that I have a meeting tonight, and then you skip your lunch, and for the next 5 hours you're straight preparing some slides for him so that he can do the meeting properly. So it does get hectic sometimes, but otherwise this is what a typical investment bank life is like.
Right, and right, I've also heard about the long working hours in investment banking. So there's another friend of mine who's doing his investment banking, and he keeps telling me stories of how his senior would give him work at, let's say, 1 a.m. in the night, and he's expected to complete it by the morning, and then he goes back to his home, has some amount of sleep, and then comes back to office. So is it true for
Yeah,
all days, or is it just like some days are hectic like that, or is it like the normal trend that you guys do?
so there are phases. If you're on a deal, let's say if you and you won't be on a deal 12 months in a year, but if you are on a diligence or a deal, definitely if you get the mandate, then your 1.5 months are pretty written off. You can write off your weekends best if you don't make plans. And this is the collateral damage that you do to your personal life in these jobs, that uh, a lot of your time bandwidth planning goes away. So yeah, that's true, but it's not that every night you have to work. You get work at 1 a.m. There's some bad nights, probably let's say 2 or 3 nights in a month that something like this will happen. But if you're not deal, pretty much be going home every day at 3 a.m. and coming back at 9 at work.
Right. So, like you rightly mentioned about the long and the crazy amount of working hours that goes into investment banking. So, how did you keep yourself motivated to work for such long hours, right?
See, I mean, different people have different motivators. What I really like about these jobs is the fact that the pride that comes in with this work is immense, and you're doing very important work. And definitely, it's not this sense of pride, this kick. Not everyone values it. I do. Uh, the additional pay and the bonus money is a motivator, definitely, but it is not everything, and it is not at the cost of a health. So that is something I take value, that I would try to make sure that I have a healthy lifestyle. And at the same time, in my workplace, I do see people not value their health enough, and there are seniors who would pray boast about compromising their health and lifestyle, but I don't think it is something to boast about. It is unhealthy, and we should all collectively try to optimize on a healthy and a happy lifestyle, be it mental health or physical health. But at the same time, the work, if the quality of work is very good, I get motivated. But there's sometimes the data entry kind of work which is not as pleasant or not as value adding, and if someone's told to do that at 1 a.m., I would hate it. That nothing will motivate me to do that.
So, investment banking has a very high entry barrier. So, what are the different ways can a candidate enter this profile?
Right. So for investment banking, what I have observed is being from a tier one institution definitely helps, and mostly they expect some sort of work experience that comes with it. If you're looking, there are two things to investment banking. One is back end, when you're supporting a global investment banking firm in anywhere in the world, and you're basically a back end unit for it. So a lot of global investment banks have that structure, and you can obviously convert onshore to the front end side with after maybe 6 months of work ex. So with that, I think a lot of these banks hire from the IITs and the SRCCs of the world. So with that, that is one way. But at the same time, directly converting into a front end investment banking role without any work ex in the past, I have not seen that happen ever. So probably you can join something like a Barclays backend, Deutsche backend, JP Morgan, uh, Nomura, all these global banks, they have these backend offices in India that you can join after your undergrad. But that also again a tier one university. For a front end role, I have seen in India from the them hire from IIMs. That is their go-to for. Especially, I think IIM Calcutta has a very good entry into investment banking from the likes of something like a Bank of America. They'd always hire a lot of folks from Calcutta. But that's what I've seen. So that is one. Again, there are Indian investment banks like Avendus Capital. They also hire folks with some sort of work experience, even if it's a back-end investment bank, and that's one of the better Indian investment banks at least. So these are some of the ways you can get into investment banking roles. So yeah, I think
I think
there
adding
are
to your
many other.
point, and specifically for the chartered accountants, I feel there are two other ways. So, firstly, for the chartered accountants who get a rank and are also doing their CFA, which I personally have
Yeah,
experience to it.
yeah.
So,
CA rank holders I would consider in the tier one sector of universities. Yeah,
yeah, so I got into
I would
a
club
big
them
bulge
in.
bracket firm through this route, right? So they do hire candidates from the
Yeah.
CA spectrum as well. And the second way of entering into it, maybe not a big bulge bracket firm, but there are these boutique investment banking firms, right, where you can also do a front end kind of a job over there. So that is another route that you can get through into IB, right?
See again, I would not say that you need to get a rank per se to get into one of the likes of, let's say, Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan backend at least. But if you're from a good college, and if you've done CA in your first attempt at least, and you have one of the better articleship experiences, then also you can join, and probably then you have to walk your way into a proper front end budge bracket role, or on the lead. Even boutique wise also there's a spectrum of boutique investment banks. There's some that have do very good quality work as well and are not bulge bracket at the same time, which one would be happy to and privileged to work at. So these are positions where sometimes luck also plays a very big role of whether you're in the right place at the right time. So I've seen rank holder CAs struggle to get into the right place, and at the same time I've seen CAs without a rank also make it.
Right.
So it's just a mixture of a lot of things, because If you're a CA, you definitely, it's not just your CA degree. There are a lot of other things that also come into play, your work ex, your teaching experience, your college, that add a lot, whether you've done industrial training or not. So at the right, so there's some other factors as well, which I've seen normally. Yeah.
Right. So, as I get from you, so if you're a CA student, right, and if you complete your finals maybe in the first attempt, and if you have a relevant work experience, maybe you've done industrial training in one of these investment banks, or you have any sort of a relevant work experience, and you can prove in the interview that you are the right candidate for this job, then maybe you can get in. And there's one another profile. It's a front end investment banking profile in a big bulge bracket firm. So Bank of America, Merrill Lynch has this 6 month internship program, right? Where they hire interns for 6 months. Even chartered accountants have gone into these roles. But the catch over here is that after 6 months, you may or may not have a job at Bank of America. So they are very upfront about it that they will hire you only for 6 months, give you that relevant experience, and only at the end of 6 months they will set a review. And if you qualify in that review, only then they will offer you a full time role, and that full time role will also be in a front end role, right? But it's very rare. I think I know one of the few guys who had went into it, and he told me that it's very rare that someone converts into a full time role over there. So that is another
Yeah,
route
for
that
an
one can
opportunity like
explore.
this, for an opportunity like this, that's what I would look at. I would look at the odds of converting, because I'm assuming everyone who got selected for that 6 month program also would be with a very good pedigree in terms of education's capabilities and communication
Yes.
skills and all these skills. So I'm assuming all of them would be marginally at above that cutoff. So after that, it's up to their intention whether they're running this program with the mindset that okay, out of 10, I have to just hire one, but I have for 6 months, I have these 10 people working for me. If that is the mindset of the employer, then probably it is not the most encouraging opportunity. But at the same time, this 6 months you learn also enough that a lot of good other opportunities will open up for you, and you would get hired because you've had this 6 month experience.
Right.
Because ultimately, what the employer cares about is whether you can add value in terms of work and how less they have to teach you. So there, this is where this 6 month experience could help you. So again, you should not look at the fact that 6 months later I would not have a job. If you there's no better opportunity, and if you have faith in yourself that you can learn and make the best of it, then I think you should definitely go for this as well. Yeah.
Right. So depends what are the relevant skill sets that one needs to have to work in these kind of roles.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of asking this question. That when you said that what are the relevant skill sets, because a lot of people ask me what are the necessary skill sets. So there's nothing necessary for sure, and I think relevant. I think everyone brings different things to the table. Some things that I've seen common across folks are communication skills, basic analytical and reasoning ability. It helps if you're good at math, and I think after that, if investment is very particular about whether how presentable you are as well. So some soft skills do come into play. So I think it's a mixture of these things. Like we've already discussed, being from a tier one education background is kind of a basic filtering condition. So if you cross that gating condition, and if you out of the 4 or 5 things that I've mentioned, you are good at most, so you would have high chances of getting into investment banking position. Yeah.
Right. So let's say that a candidate converts for an interview, right? He gets selected for the interview, who gets into an interview. So what kind of preparation tips would you advise
Yeah.
for that candidate so that he can ace that interview? And how was your overall experience when you interviewed for Deutsche Bank?
So for investment banking position, I think some basic, I think at least 20 days before the interview, you should start reading the economic times regularly, and at least be aware of everything at a macro and a micro level of what's happening around in terms of, let's say if the budget just went by, you should just know what are the key movers and shakers of the budgetary announcements. If there is some global crisis, oil crisis, or some debt crisis, some quantitative easing, anything that's announced at a global Fed level, you should just be aware of everything that's happening at least till 20 days before the interview. Then after that, some basic concepts about finance should be very clear. If you have relevant work about finance, you should know enough to talk about, and they will definitely drill down into your work ex, and they will ask you questions and deep dive into it. So make sure whatever's in your CV is very well covered. So if you do that, because that's something that they try to target, and it's not just what's in there, but also adjacent streams as well. that what if, and then they'll stress test you. Then they'll try to change the situation of what's given there. And let's say if hypothetically they'll give you a scenario and what would be your reaction to that. So, just prepare for different permutations and combinations of what they could do with your CV. Finance concepts, if you're clear with it, I think that's the basic prep that I would do. I will, if because I think I come from a CA background, so I'm aware of what are the SFM key formulas and courses and subjects and topics that one can test you on. But definitely your time value of money and weighted average cost of capital concepts of net present value, all of this should be right here.
Right. I think to your point, I think I can share one of my interview experiences. So what they really grilled me down into was very sector specific questions, right? So they asked me what kind of sectors are you interested in? Then they asked me, tell me two stocks that you have bought. At what price did you buy it? What is today's price of those stocks? What was the mindset like when you bought that stocks? How do you see that stocks going forward? Then the budget had just come in, so they asked me what is the impact of the budget on these stocks. So I had talked about the real estate sector. Then they also drilled down into how does a real estate sector gets valued. They threw in some technical terms and asked me to give an explanation of those terms. I think they will drill down into each and every aspect of it. So before even sitting for these interviews, you should do all sort of homework, right?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I forgot to add that point, but I've been in these situations where I've been asked to pitch a stock. They tell me one or two stocks that you've bought, and then I have to defend them. And the problem is you can't always know everything about that company, and they ask you what is the price then, what is the price now, and like you said. So these are also things. So the best thing is, I know a lot of people. So funny thing, I have been trading since I was in college, but a lot of people who are interested in these positions also do not trade, okay, per se. So it's not necessary that you have to say that you trade when they ask you, do you invest in stock markets? And it's okay if you say you don't. But if you say yes, you do, you better know the ABC and the XYZs of that stock.
Right.
And otherwise, if you in general pitch that yeah, I invested in Unilever, and Unilever is the word in itself, so they'll know more than you for sure. So yeah.
So what is the pay like? Industry standard pay in an investment banking role?
So it depends on from firm to firm and role to role. So I should not say the exact amounts, but I think I'll just give a broad range for these compensations. So I think in investment banking, I think anything you can inclusive bonus, and these firms have very high bonus appetite for around 50 to 80% of your base. So for a global PE backend role, you will earn anything around between 12 to 20. But if you are in a front end Indian investment bank, then you will earn around anything between 18 to 25. And if you are in a global investment banking front end role, your base would be around 30, and then you could take a bonus of around an extra 20 to 30 lakhs. So it can range from your take home would be around 50 to 55.
But that happens only after you convert to front end, right?
Front end, yeah. And front end also global, not in Indian investment bank, global.
And for different firms, there are different periods after which you can enter front end. For example, one of the banks might have a 3-year period after which you can enter. Deutsche Bank might have a shorter time period.
There is no guarantee also. That's the biggest problem with these positions. There is no guarantee. 2-3 years you slog, and after that also maybe there might not be a position available for you.
I mean, a follow-up thought on that. What do you think that one should do during his entry-level role that he increases his chances of getting converted into a front-end role?
I think relationships play a very important role over here. You would need someone to, use that one bullet they have in their gun for you. So relationships really work, and most of the conversions that I have seen happen are for people who have, they have that one senior principal, VP or an MD who is actually, thumping the table for them. So if you have that, I think it's ultimately not the work you do, but the relationships that you build. And not many people believe that at an early level. They just think that being up for long hours actually helps convert, but it's not that. I think the person should like you.
I think it's a combination of both the things. You need to be perfect in your job also, but then there should be some element which should differentiate you from others, right? And that element comes through your networking, I guess.
Right, because everyone ultimately, see, the work is not very tough. Everyone can do Excel, PPT, Outlook at the end of the day. It's not rocket science that you're doing. But the ability to manage your network and keep people happy around you, and how you talk when you get work, how you react, these are also things that probably work. And a lot of people never have the confidence to speak in meetings, and that's our differentiator. A lot of people do the work very well, but if there's a meeting that they have to present it, they are not being able to do it well. And there's someone who's probably not worked as hard but is very good presenting in a meeting, and he'll take away the brownie. So I think that's where I've seen a lot of people may differentiate and make or break it.
So thank you so much, Divyansh, for your valuable inputs. In the next part of this episode, Divyansh will be sharing his experience and interview preparation tips to get into the MBBs of management consulting. Also, comment down below if you have any queries. Either Divyansh or me would reply to them. So stay tuned for the next video. Cheers.